I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the new committee that is the Innovation, Technology, Trade, and Commerce Committee. It is a composite, if you will, of the former TCT committee, along with the IT portion of the ITGS committee. So it is a new committee that now covers both jurisdictions. So every member is technically a new member of this committee, although except maybe for Mr. Bonin, because he served on both. You were on TCT and on IT, so this is nothing new to you. But for the rest of us, this is a new thing, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Mr. Bonin, Mr. Krikorian, Ms. Martinez, and I'm not sure if Mr. Buscaino will be joining us. But thank you. We don't need applause for that. Excited to be chairing this new and improved committee. The airport and the harbor are huge economic drivers, not only to our city, but to the region. Some of the largest public works projects in the nation are going on in these areas. I'm looking forward to learning more about these departments while continuing to engage on the technology issues before the committee. There's so much going on with LAWA at both Van Nuys and LAX, the port, and so much happening with ITA moving us into the future. This committee will really help us move into the future in many good ways. So before I get started, Mr. Espinosa, are there any general public comment cards?
Yes, sir. We have, I believe, 3 public comment cards.
All right, I guess we'll do those at the end. We'll move then forward to item number 1. We're just going to jump right into it. Mr. Espinosa, would you please read item number 1 into the record?
Yes, item number 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Ted Ross as General Manager of the Information Technology Agency.
Mr. Ross, come on up. I've had the pleasure of working with you as part of the IT side of things for the last couple of years, but you are now, you've now been appointed the General Manager. We want to hear a little bit about your goals and your ideas for the future.
Excellent, thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Ted Ross, as many of you know, and I'm being appointed, recommended by the Mayor's Office to be General Manager for the Information Technology Agency. I start off my career in private sector, and I came to public sector because I'm passionate, honestly, about public service. I'm passionate about the city of Los Angeles, where I was born and raised, and I'm passionate about leveraging technology to improve the lives of our citizens and how we operate and run our government. I started off with Los Angeles World Airports. I moved to the Controller's Office to help manage the implementation of the financial management system, very large, successful implementation. And I came over to the Information Technology Agency a couple of years ago during a time of great issue and great controversy for the Information Technology Agency. We committed a lot of our time and attention to try to re-engage our customers, to re-engage and deliver good technology, to try to eliminate legacy platforms and make substantial improvements. I'm very proud of the achievements accomplished both by the IT and other IT departments over the last couple of years, probably culminating last year with a first-place digital city with government technology. For the Information Technology Agency, I could say probably succinctly that I think our priorities really fall into 3 key areas. Number 1, we need to deliver responsive IT. That is technology that is responsive and delivers business outcomes. And what do I mean by that? That means we partner with the various city departments and elected officials to understand their operations, to understand their needs, and to understand how to best improve citizens, businesses, and visitors so that we deliver technology platforms that deliver real value. They aren't just some server somewhere running something, but they're actually engaging our citizens, they're engaging our customers, and they're delivering real business outcomes to improve the lives of them. Secondly, we need to have responsible information technology, which means we need to help promote sustainable technology. Technology provides a great opportunity, a great platform to improve our sustainability as a city, our resilience as a city, and also to help develop a workforce that is diverse and represents our constituents. And I think thirdly is to deliver excellent IT. That means some of the very boring stuff. I've got a lot of great supporters here from the Information Technology Agency who know often what excellence requires. It's a lot of long hours, it's a lot of hard work to keep our infrastructure running securely and reliably, to have the best cybersecurity in the world where possible, and to be able to deliver excellent IT operations that are highly available, highly effective, and deliver great components. And I think if I were to kind of broadly generalize, that really is our philosophy and our approach in the coming years at the ITA.
Colleagues, any questions?
Okay, just a couple.
Ms. Martinez, go ahead.
I just want to, Mr. Ross, can you talk a little bit about the controller's FMS project?
Sure.
That you were
Absolutely.
in charge of? And sort of what were some of the major takeaways from that and the lessons that you learned?
At the risk of sounding corny, I worked at Los Angeles World Airports, and I came downtown, and the primary reason I came is because I believe that the city was implementing a new enterprise resource planning, a big financial system, and I thought they'd need their best and their brightest. And I had the arrogance to think that I might be one of them. So I competed for the position, and I came downtown, and I very quickly got involved with the financial management system. So here we have the city doing a massive undertaking, a $55 million project, replacing multiple old mainframe systems, touching just about every bit of financial operations here at the City of LA. A very ambitious project, a very challenging project. And I came on board and quickly ended up being the manager for the controller's office to support and implement that project. We learned a lot of great lessons on that project. We learned the importance of quality assurance. It's not just testing things technically, but it's making sure that we engage our users. If a system isn't adopted and accepted by its users, it could be the best system in the world, but like a car, it'll have no drivers. And so it's very important to engage our users and engage them quickly and implement a system that they could get behind and use. Secondly, we tried to apply excellence in training. That was during ERIP. So at the same time as us implementing a brand new system that touched all sorts of financial operations, we were losing masses of our accountants and our analysts. So we felt it was extremely important to train not just how to use the system, but training people on just the basic fundamentals of purchasing and budgets and processes, so people used a system within the context of that of those processes. And thirdly, we felt it was really important to have excellent when it came to support. Our first month alone, we had over 1,000 support tickets, and those are just the tickets that people logged. But generally speaking, most people heard and said it was a fairly quiet system. And the reason why is when we had to tackle or ran into an issue, we immediately chased after it. We hustled after it. So we worked very hard for a big system to keep small problems from becoming big problems. And so by having kind of a passionate zeal regarding our support and our delivery, we were able to keep things from getting ever out of control. And ultimately, for most folks, they would say that the FMS system was a very successful project for the City of LA.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bonner.
Thanks. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I have complete faith in you. I think you're going to do an awesome job in this position.
I appreciate it. That's a lot being said from a very tech-savvy council member.
Thank you. But you have some big challenges. One of them is I think you're one of the departments that has a particularly perilous rate of potential retirees over the next year.
Yes, we do.
I'm hearing it's somewhere between a third and a half. Is that really that high?
So we have over 50% folks eligible to retire in the next 3 to 4 years.
Wow.
So it is massive.
Is there sort of a restoration plan in place, and how are you going to do that?
Absolutely. So very aware of this, we've been initiating the ITA succession plan. And very fortunately, council actually ended up funding us to have 10 new application programmer positions. It's a feeder class. It's an entry-level position. They aren't just developers and programmers. We are using those positions and moving them into our data center, into our developers, into our websites, and to even Channel 35 for support around that. So we're leveraging an ITA succession plan in partnership with the personnel department. So we're not just throwing resources, good resources potentially after legacy solutions. We're identifying the key areas where we're going to lose people. We're identifying the key areas where we need to have innovative skill sets to be able to do new technologies, not just help support old. We're utilizing the ITA succession plan budget provided to us for those application programmers. We're also getting budget to be able to use Hiring Hall for our communication services, which is also losing people. And we're leveraging all sorts of other options, such as Hire LA, so that we're partnering with the mayor's office to bring in interns. We're partnering up with LA High Tech to bring in community college and university level. So we're using 10K Veteran Summit. We actually went ahead and received over 20 applications for folks who have specializations in radio and microwave, so we're bringing them in. So if anyone's even hearing of this now, ITA is doing its best to hire and will be hiring, and we're looking to attract the best talent we can to work for the Information Technology Agency, not just to run the old, but to help implement the new.
One of the areas that I'm really concerned about is sort of the ITA public safety section.
Yes.
And I understand there's still some critical areas that are pretty dangerous, potentially dangerously understaffed, such as the techs who maintain the LAFD and the LAPD radio towers, along with the computer-aided dispatch systems for the departments. What specifically is being done to fill those needs?
So we went ahead and consolidated our dispatch on-site support staff with our development staff. So our computer-aided dispatch manager now is over all of it. We're going to be leveraging budget packages in those key areas where we do require resources, and we'll be very clear and very much shortlist where we have the challenges and where we'll need to develop staff. In addition to that, we are targeting those specialized skill sets. So as you were referring to, when it comes to radio and things like microwave support, they're often specialists. And they're specialized in areas where if I were to reach out and look for database administrators and programmers, I wouldn't necessarily find it. So we're tapping the types of resources who have those resources available, or say that have those skill sets available. So we're trying to hit it on a multi-front, consolidate, identify, and partner with fire department and police department to make sure that we are filling positions that are critical to maintain public safety.
In this year's budget, we funded, I think it was 5 communication electrician positions for
Yes.
the dispatch systems. I know we're only, a month into the fiscal year.
We are
but-
actively filling those positions.
Great.
Actively.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kukroy?
Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
So as in the years that I've been budget chair, one of my frustrations has been that as we've gone through budget cuts, ITA doesn't have a constituency of support that comes and screams about cuts to ITA as much as some other departments do. And it's been frustrating because almost every department in the city, perhaps every department in the city, is so dependent on ITA. So public safety services are disrupted by our failure to sufficiently fund ITA. So with that context in mind, we're at a point now where we're starting to look at service restoration as we've gotten past the worst parts of the budget. What would you say is the #1 area of priority for ITA? And I don't need your specific budget requests yet. We'll get to that.
I will keep them to myself, sir.
But what is the one sort of general area where you think you really need more help, more budget, more positions, if you had to pick one?
Infrastructure. I know that's a bit of a broad statement. We have a constituency of sort in the sense that when we deliver a citizen application, they can help us vocalize. When we deliver even public safety applications, they can help us vocalize. But truly the infrastructure that it all runs on, let's say the voice and data networks themselves, it's very hard to find those who will support because they're not as sexy. They're very back office. So stability of the network, the ability to deliver communications and networks projects. Infrastructure is one of those areas that ultimately you pay the piper when you don't make investments. And so I can bring in people to develop mobile applications relatively quickly. I can build websites relatively quickly. I can deliver a lot of software as a service relatively quickly. But ultimately we'll likely be in a conversation around infrastructure. The non-sexy, behind-the-scenes communication closets types of investments in which it would be my responsibility to itemize them very clearly, to prioritize them very clearly, and to show both the need for them as well as ultimately what we get out of them. To as close as possible try to show return on investment. So I think that would be ultimately our responsibility.
So with that point in mind, we have many very aged systems in this city, many of them obsolete or beyond obsolete already. So as we do that investment, the challenge is how do you do the transition and that service during that time, and probably the worst example we have in recent memory is the DWP billing system changeover, but there are others, and
Correct.
Sometimes they literally affect the public safety. Lives are literally on the line, like the
Yes,
fire
sir.
departments have. So what lessons can we learn about how to do that process better, to take a new system that's replacing an old system and make sure that it's seamless for both internal users and our external consumers?
They're someone who did their master's degree and did a lot of work around systems implementations. I will keep this concise. But there's certainly key benefits and things we've learned recently right now on our CRM implementation, the 301 CRM, to replace the previous one, as well as things like FMS and other big system implementations. To keep it short, it's extremely important that systems are tested thoroughly by their potential users. It'll give them the opportunity to road test them, to identify major issues, and for us to shortlist and resolve before they have to use it as their system of production. Secondly, training is extremely important. If I hand a Ferrari, let's say you hand a Ferrari to me, I'm not going to get it around the test track nearly as quickly as probably a race car driver could get their Honda Civic around. So it's partly about the technology, but it's very much about the person who's behind the wheel. So if a user is very effective at what they'll use, even with the old system, sometimes they're very effective. So it's extremely important to get them a leg up on that. And probably the last one would be, it's extremely important to early on have a very responsive support desk. As issues are identified daily, you escalate them, you make resolutions, you communicate back out to your users so that you keep small fires from becoming very big fires.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. I'd like to talk about the digital infrastructure and virtual infrastructure. We've talked a lot about that in committee, both
Yes, sir.
in terms of the city infrastructure and then the wider infrastructure that we're looking at through CityLink LA to try to improve the digital infrastructure of the entire city.
Absolutely.
Maybe the last question, what do you think will be the biggest challenge that you're going to face in your tenure, should you be confirmed?
I would think the biggest challenge I would face is our department getting a good knowledge of what the city needs to do, as in being able to have a good engagement across the departments of what they're trying to accomplish and lining up our technology to deliver it. And it's obviously an all-inclusive statement, but the better we understand what needs to be done and the better we can leverage modern technology to do it and have the resources assigned to it, we'll be delivering excellent things for years to come.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Ross. We have a couple of public comments, public cards on this topic. So you can feel free to take a seat, and I'm going to bring up Ravenous Catalyst for our first speaker, someone named Ravenous Catalyst.
Thank you. I'm not sure at what point you did come to the tech committee. About 3 years ago, Mr. Weston, I believe, commissioned this committee to design a database to help them make better decisions. Thankfully, things like that are not so subjective or abstract anymore. At the same time, I was designing a database to help me find the 10 companies that were doing the most to help life, based upon the mathematical things like air, water, dirt, they're mathematical constants. It's an easy database design. Basically, the math has shown me that whatever actions are taken in the next 2 years will represent themselves on people in 10 years. So the kids that are 8 years old now will be 18. Those actions will represent themselves. It also showed me that there's one absolute thing that can be done to help everything and one thing that is hurting everything. So I would just like to tell this commission it is really easy. It's a Sudoku 9-thing mathematical constant. I hope you work on that. It took me 3 months to know we're going from embarrassing to shameful to sinister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, someone initials NWA, I believe, Mr. Herman, that's you.
Ladies with attitude. It's just a movie. Don't take it so serious.
It's a band, too, but go ahead.
NWA. Ultimately, as brought out by the aged Krikorian here, in regards to the testimony of Ted Ross for his appointment, we already know that technology in the city of Los Angeles has not advanced, let alone has it not improved. You can't even put technology on the very basic media, Channel 35 for people in Van Nuys, which is in Miss Nuri Martinez's City Hall Van Nuys district, for anyone to participate in just an appearance in public comment. So I truly hope that Mr. Ted Ross's criteria of credentials meet the demand of this aged technology that the city has not provided structural infrastructure to meet the technology of today, as we've heard in the news, volts exploding and burning down all the wiring systems.
Thank you very much.
NWA.
So this is, it's with great pleasure, Mr. Ross, that the recommendation of this committee is to, without objection, looking around, I see no objection, that we are thrilled to confirm your appointment. Congratulations. This committee is confirming your appointment and moving it forward to the next step. Thank you. So next we're going to move to item 2. Mr. Espinoza, would you please read item 2 to the record, and can have staff come up? Very good.
Item number 2 is a report from the Board of Airport Commissioners relative to the First Amendment to the contract with Rivers and Christian to extend the term at Los Angeles International Airport.
Right, and we'll start, I guess, with the department. And just as we all get used to your name, state your name and position, and then go
Certainly.
forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Roger Johnson, Deputy Executive Director at Los Angeles World Airports. My role at the airport is I'm responsible for the capital development program at the airport. So the board action that you have in front of you today is an administrative action to extend the term of a contract to architectural firm Rivers and Christians as part of the tools that we use to deliver the capital program at LAX, Ontario, and Van Nuys. We get various design contracts from architects and engineers, and we use a number of different types. We use some on-call contracts, which is what this one is, and we also use some project-specific contracts. This contract in front of you today, Rivers and Christians, was hired given an on-call contract with a 3-year term. What's happened is several of the projects that they were responsible for assisting us with were delayed predominantly due to unforeseen conditions in the subsurface. And what we find is we need to extend the term of the contract in order for them to continue to provide what are called construction administration services for projects that are not complete. So that's an overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Additional comments from staff?
Mike Doucette, Los Angeles World Airports, also Deputy Executive Director. One additional item I did want to mention, if you didn't see, it is a no-cost extension to the contract. So all we're asking for is time, but no additional money for that contract extension.
Okay. CEO, any additional comments?
Yes, Bill Kreitz with the CEO's office.
Yeah.
We've reviewed this and we recommend approval.
Ms. Martinez?
So I have a question. So are we behind on our projects by 2 years, or did we underestimate the time that it would take to complete the services?
We are behind about 122 days on one of our projects, which is called what we call the T4 Connector Project, which is a project that connects the American Airlines terminal to the Newtown Bradley terminal. And the reason for that, again, was due to a number of unforeseen conditions that actually resulted in having to do a complete redesign of the structural foundation of the building. So that delayed the project out. That particular element delayed it out about 122 days. Now, I would say right now we have about $3.4 billion worth of work under contract today. 99% of that work is on time and on budget. So this is one of many projects that are underway right now that has been delayed.
Yeah, and the only reason I ask is I really think we need to strive to try to stay within reasonable time and budget so that we don't have to constantly come back for change orders in these types of situations as much as we can. So that's one of the reasons I asked. I understand that there's not additional funds that are being allocated for these services, but we should try to keep on time and on budget.
Yes. And to the point, I mean, every time is money. And have you quantified the cost of the 122 days in terms of what that is costing us?
Yes, we have. And there was a change order that was given to the contractor for part of that time. Part of that time, we felt with the contractor, it was the contractor's responsibility to have identified some things early. So there was a construction change order that was done. It's well within the contingency of the project budget that we have. So the project overall is still running actually a little bit under budget. So, but there was a change order associated with the time extension to the contractor doing the building. This extension is to the architect that provided the bridging documents and is our representative on the design.
So what is if you've quantified what it's actually costing through the change order, what is it actually costing us?
Councilman, I would have to get back to you with the dollar value of the change order for the delay. I don't recall exactly how much it was, but I believe it was in the $250,000 range.
And is some of that borne by the contractor? I mean, by the contract, or some of the actual costs, or it's all borne by the contract?
That was the part of the cost that LAWA negotiated that we believed was due to the unforeseen conditions. I believe the contractor actually absorbed about 75% of the cost of delay, so their costs were actually more significant. But the amount that we settled on was based on negotiation of the time impacts, how much we felt was our responsibility and how much we felt was the contractor's.
Mr. Bonner?
So T4 connector, it's a good, important project. A lot of members of the committee are new to dealing with LAWA on such a micro level, particularly the various aspects of the LAX modernization project. Can you explain a little bit more about what the T4 project is and what a difference it will make to passengers?
Certainly. The T4 connector project, as its name implies, is essentially a building that it actually serves several functions. Its primary function is to connect the American Airlines domestic Terminal 4 to the Tom Bradley Terminal. What that will do is it will allow domestic arriving passengers coming into Terminal 4 with international connections to proceed directly through the connector to the new Tom Bradley Terminal without having to exit the building and go through security screening. The building will also have a busing terminal in it, which will also allow then passengers, domestic arrivals in the other south terminals to catch a bus airside, connect to the busing facility, go up to the T4 connector building, and again connect to the Tom Bradley Terminal. This will significantly improve passenger level of service at the airport by allowing passengers not have to rescreen to connect to international departing flights. The third and significant important function of the T4 connector building is also it will house what's called the check bag inspection system, which is the security screening for luggage. Right now, T4 does not have an automated luggage inspection system. Bags are screened. It's a manual process where the bags get screened. This will be a automated process where your bag gets dropped off at the ticket counter, will automatically go through TSA screening and then get loaded onto the aircraft. So it's security as well as providing passenger convenience.
Roger, if I might add, one additional item is 5 additional checkpoint lanes as well in terms of the amount of time it takes for passengers to check in, get through security, and then on to their flight. So we're adding capacity to security screening as well.
Thanks, Mike. There is an interline bag there that were arriving international passengers at Tibbet who actually have to go through customs and then exit because they're taking their bags off of checked luggage. There will be a separate screening lane for them to go through TSA to then get up into the T4 connector for connecting domestic flights.
2 things. One, thank you for the explanation. This is another example of one of the many things that the airport is doing to create a world-class airport that is a much better experience for the passenger. 2, Mr. LaBonche has not been gone that long. You're still not allowed to say Tibbet.
Oh.
You're not allowed to say what?
You're not allowed to say
I'm
Tibbet.
sorry.
It's the Tom Bradley International
Terminal. Yes.
I was going to point that out.
He bequeathed that responsibility to
Okay.
me, and I'll be taking it seriously. So with the 122-day extension, when do we expect T4 will open?
A portion of the building will open, the connector building will open probably in February, is when we expect it to open. And I believe February of 2016. And the CBIS, the check bag inspection system should be online in about March or April, I believe.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Additional questions, members? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We have a couple of public comment cards, and then we'll move forward on that item. So if I could bring up NWA, followed by Antonia Ramirez.
Notwithstanding the angles. So you're hearing, public, that change orders, misuse of public funds, extensions, contingencies, and exemptions. How dare this Trade of Commerce Committee sit here and negotiate on our behalf if we are under short-term contracts to do the utmost of these projects. Not that anyone's declaring that abuse and waste and fraud are a part of the contingency of these projects, because you heard that, you're sitting on $250,000 going to waste because you can't subject the projects to final completion times.
Thank you. Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you very much. Rivers and Christian to extend the term at Los Angeles International Airport only with the exception that they stop hiring illegal wetbacks and Chango Latino gangbangers who are truly all felons, and stop the criminal ring in all airports, which would include theft and criminal monopolies, thereby sabotaging our beloved pilots, crew, and airlines' outstanding air service. First and foremost, hire military veterans, whether they are uniformed or ununiformed, active or inactive, for they are professional, cordial, responsive, troubleshooters, hard and ethical workers with the highest sense of purpose, fulfillment, and integrity. Now, LAX Big Enchilada Airports, will you raise the bar of American exceptional standards, or will you cheapen it with wetbacks and Chango Latino gangbangers? Let's bring aviation opulence with taste, class, elegance, glamour, freedom-friendly, and greatness back to our beloved America. God bless Donald Trump, and God bless the United States military, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you. So without objection, I'm going to recommend approval of this item. Seeing no objection, this item is approved. So we're going to move on to item number 3. Mr. Espinosa, would you please read that item into the record?
Item number 3 is a report from the Board of Airport Commissioners relative to the proposed agreement with Concesionera Vela Compañía de Aviación SAPI de CVDB Valeris Airlines at LA International Airport, LA Ontario International Airport, sorry.
Thank you very much. Please.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Debbie Bowers. I'm a Deputy Executive Director at Los Angeles World Airports, and I'm in charge of commercial development at the airports. This item before you approves a use and lease agreement with Valeris Airlines for ticket office and counter space at Los Angeles, Ontario International Airport. Valeris began service to from Guadalajara in April of 2014, and they are currently up to 6 flights a week.
Additional comments, staff comments?
Not this time.
Just the revenue generated in subsequent years, will it differ from the revenue generated in the first year?
Yes.
How will that work?
This is a residual airport, so each year through the landing fees and the terminal rates, we even it out and cover all the costs, and so the airlines the rates are determined by the total cost of running the airport.
So Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports. Basically, we set the rates every year to break even with the Ontario costs and cost of operations, and so the rates will go up and down slightly per year, meaning the revenue, but it's to operate the airport on a break-even basis.
So it's linked to that, and that's how it scales.
Right. Yes.
And the termination provisions, can you explain those?
Yeah. So right now, the way that the use and lease agreement is set up, and it was with all the signatory airlines at Ontario, they had 2 opportunities to opt out. One was in 2014, and no airlines opted out. In October of 2019, they'll have another opportunity to opt out of the agreement with no penalties. Otherwise, the agreement runs to 2024. So they only have one opportunity to terminate the lease.
And that's with for LA and Ontario?
No, just for Ontario. They're under a different, at LAX they're under a tariff, so it's sort of like a 30-day permit. It's a different setup.
So what would happen if some time in the future they get their way and Ontario becomes if we were to sell them the airport or something to that effect, would that change the structure?
No. That all of those leases would just be assigned over to the new entity that runs the airport.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think we'll have 2 public comment cards, and then we'll move forward with that item. So, Ms. Ramirez, followed by NWA.
Again, thank you very much. Obviously, this is a Spanish airline and a foreigner. So as I will go ahead and just say, you've heard the old adage, while in Rome, do as the Romans do. So while in America, do as the Americans do, not the ghetto Americans, not the white trash or any other, but do what the great Americans do. Have courtesy, have class, have opulence, and learn the ways of real America, what the pioneer Americans came from and for, and how they built this beautiful country. Again, those are the standards that we want to uphold in America. So again, to those foreign airlines, bless America, help American citizens, and make sure that you don't sabotage the airlines or the passengers, but be cordial. Give to them and service to them, because serviceability is one of the most beautiful things. And if I can again show you Japan, wow, Japan is great in service. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. NWA? Mr. Herman?
I'm just going to read off what the physical impact would likely turn out to be regarding the lease between these airlines of VOLARIS, Volaris, and the Department of Airports will have, considering no impact to the general fund, that's what it states, but will the lease provide approximately, possibly 80 to 100,000 for the rent during that first year or not? It's subject to question, so that it complies with all Department of the Airport financial policies. I know Mr. Krikorian there doesn't give a damn because he sits there thinking about, I'm talking about the item.
Not disparaging members of the committee.
I'm not discouraging anybody. I just thought it's applicable at the time to say that under the permits and license and the entering into these new leases, that this council not take any action to disapprove of the lease unless there is public acknowledgement.
Thank you. Without objection, I'd like to approve this item. Seeing no objection, the item is approved. Mr. Espinosa, would you read item number 4, please?
Item number 4 is a report from the Board of Harbor Commissioners relative to the agreement with Klein Systems Group Ltd. for billing and pilot systems, software licenses, maintenance, and support services.
Good afternoon, council members. Lance Kaneshiro, Chief Information Officer at the Harbor Department. This item is a 5-year agreement with Klein Systems Group for support and software maintenance for the port pilot system and the billing system. It's a sole source agreement because Klein is the only provider for its software.
Alvin Newman, CAO's office. We reviewed this item and we recommend approval.
So how was Klein originally selected?
The original selection, there are 2 systems here. One is the pilot system and the other is the billing system. The pilot system was put in prior to when I was there, but it was approximately 2002 through a competitive process. And the billing system was put in 2010 through a competitive request for proposal process. And since then, after the initial implementation, that's when we need to stick with the software that so we select and pay the software maintenance. That's what this is for.
Do they have offices in LA or California?
No.
Ms. Martinez, you had a question?
So was the original contract sole source, or you went out to bid originally?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, the original procurement and the implementation, that was done competitively.
Okay. And so we've been happy with their services, and so that's why you're now extending it to a 3-year contract.
That's correct.
I just want to make sure we're out seeking other bids as well, just to ensure that this is the absolute company to go with.
Right, that's correct. So the initial implementation was done through a competitive process, and this is a sole source because that's the software we selected, and this is the only provider for their software.
I would like to interject one thing. This company is working in about 10 ports across the United States. They were recently bought out by Saab Technology Incorporated that does have an office in Washington, D.C. They are known internationally for expertise in pilotage and also marine services. So that was the history of them, and that's the history of them currently.
Mr. Krikorian, you had a question?
Thank you. And that your last comment actually relates to my question, because there are dozens, hundreds of ports around, presumably with port pilots. And if this is the only provider of this software and they're operating in 10 ports, what are the other ports doing to fill that void?
Well, I'm not sure what all the other ports do, but a lot of them may not have systems at all, or they may be doing manual processes. But port pilots is very specific to the port industry, just like billing is also very industry specific. So when we went out through the competitive process, these very industry specific products were the highest rated when we did the
Maybe we can
evaluation.
take one step back and you could explain, what does the port pilot system do? I mean, billing is self-explanatory, but what does the other port pilot system do?
So the port pilot system is used by our port pilots that take orders from ships when they need pilot services. So pilot services are essentially Harbor Department port pilot employees who go out and meet a ship and bring it into the harbor, because these ships are coming from all over the world. They may not be familiar with the inner harbor channels and how to bring it actually into the dock. So the port pilot system is used for that dispatch service, to receive orders, whether to bring it in or to take it out back out to sea.
So it's a dispatch system. It's not a system that is involved in the actual implementation of the piloting.
Correct. It's a dispatching system, and it's also used to record the berth that it's assigned to. And then that information is then fed to the billing system, which bills according to wharfage, dockage, and pilotage services. So the two systems are integrated, but the pilot system is used for dispatching and for berth assignments.
It seems surprising that there would be only one provider of that, but if that's what we found when we tested the market, well, so be it.
And this is an extension. We'd have another shot at this in a couple of years, right?
I'm sorry?
3 years.
3 years from now, presumably there'll be another bid, open bid.
This is a 5-year agreement. 5-year.
Okay, great. Any additional questions? Fairly straightforward. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have 2 public comment cards on this. Start with Ms. Ramirez, followed by NWA. Mr. NWA, you can come take a seat. So
Great balls of fire. Pilots and military aviators kick ass, huh, mama? Having said that, money isn't everything, but pilot safety is. Therefore, what about the hackers hacking into the commercial airline pilot software while being airborne, or military aviators while under? Exactly. And so that is my concern. Are they safe? Are our pilots safe? Again, pilot safety is a priority. Without our pilots, we have no passengers. Bring life, liberty, justice, and freedom to all our pilots. Let's make our pilots and their families whole. And in another segment, I'm worried because there seems to be a lot of tension between the air traffic controllers and also the pilots. When pilots are having emergencies or distress calls, they radio down to air traffic controllers. There seems to be a glitch there all the time. We need to rectify that. Either they're being smartasses or just downright cocky. Let's protect our pilots. Oh, yes, please.
We're dealing with port pilots here, not air pilots.
Right, it's talking about the port pilot system.
So, Mr. NWA.
Under the critical supports by efficient operation of the port pilots to provide safe, reliable, and efficient pilotage and marine services. So whether or not it's feasible for outside contractors to perform this work or not, it is the duty of this council to provide safety, efficient protection at these potential sites so that no person by this proposed agreement will be dissatisfied by your decision making today. I know in 1 minute I can't satisfy the status quo of what I really want to say, but in short terms, keep it, stuff it, eat it.
Thank you. Without objection, seeing no objection on this item is approved. And we move to item number 5. Mr. Espinosa, would you please read that item into the record?
Item number 5 is a report from the Board of Harbor Commissioners relative to the Second Amendment to the agreement with CH2M Hill Incorporated for the Sampson Way Roadway Improvement Project Engineering Design Services.
Good afternoon. Tony Joello, Deputy Executive Director of Development at the Port of Los Angeles. What you have before you is a Second Amendment to the CH2M Hill contract for the Sampson Way Realignment Project. As you may or may not know, Sampson Way is the main entrance into our Ports of Call village in San Pedro. And what we are doing is improving that entrance into the Ports of Call with this project. The amendment is a 3-year extension of the current contract. We are not asking for any additional funds. We do plan to complete this design in October of this year. We've been designing for about a year now. We plan to advertise the project for construction either in February or March, dependent upon the approval of grant funding from Metro. We're expecting about $4.9 million through the Metro grant process right now. Give you a little background. This first contract, the contract was originally awarded by our Board of Harbor Commissioners in July of 2008. The original amount was about approximately $5 million. The first amendment was in August of 2011, where we added 4 years to the contract and no increase in funding at that time. The second amendment, again, just to recap, will add 3 years to the contract to bring it to an end of approximately September of 2018 to take us through the construction of the project. The delays were actually consciously delayed. We didn't go into any unforeseens. I guess the unforeseens that we did go into were some economic downturns in the economy back in the late 2008 and 9, 10 years. So we did put the project on hold. We did go through an extensive community process to define the project and to get buy-in on what the project was to deliver. The other delay was actually because we were waiting to pick a developer for our Ports of Call village. We wanted to make sure that what we were designing was consistent and worked with the developer's proposal. I can answer any questions you may have this time.
Any additional comments?
No additional comments except for Alvin Newman, CAO. We recommend approval on this project.
Okay. There's the 5-county region and its impact on the city. Could you explain that?
The local preference we have, because we're under state tidelands jurisdiction, we couldn't just use a LA County or LA City local preference. The state lands required a broader definition of local, so the port has adopted a 5-county region.
Additional questions?
Yeah, that makes me curious. What was the source of that requirement?
Because the port is under state tidelands, we're actually under the trust of the state of California. The monies that are generated in the port are considered really state funds. And so, I probably need an attorney here to really explain it, but the gist of it is that the city of LA isn't supposed to be taken, the port is for the benefit of the state of California.
No, I get
so
that.
When we look at the local preference, the Coastal Commission, state lands wanted a broader definition of what local meant from their perspective. So it was a 5-county look at what is considered a local business to get preferential or extra credit for selection process.
So that's a standing rule of some kind, or was it specific to this?
I think it was negotiated through the process that when the local preference was being defined.
Yeah. Okay.
Additional questions?
Just to comment on that, as I'm sure Mr. Buscaino would tell you, the restrictions of the Tidelands Act and the State Lands Commission are often frustrating to the port and to the community and to Mr. Buscaino. And Mr. Buscaino has been looking to try to find some state legislative relief to try to give more local control and more local ability to keep funds there and make more decisions. I personally wish the FAA were as lax as the State Lands Commission. He and I are both in similar boats, but he's got an easier time down on the port than I do at the airport.
Thank you. Without any additional questions, thank you very much. We have a single public comment card on this. Mr. NWA. I only have one public comment card, and that's from NWA.
Whoa, so you heard, huh? You can't double dip into state monies. That's the reason why the city of Los Angeles is so desperate for engaging in piggy banks that they render belong to them by their abuse, their waste, and their contemptuous idea to steal from the public by misuse of funds. I should just say, no, it's really administrative misuse of funds. Because if there was any decency and fairness, you would work with these other agencies to come up with a comprehensive idea of how to delegate this monies so that communities don't get bamboozled like by Joe Blow Busquiano in CD15. He should stick to his laying asphalt and sidewalks in front of his house better than becoming a councilman, because he has nothing better to do than waste our time.
Thank you very much. Without objection, this item is approved. We'll move to item number 6. Mr. Espinosa, would you please read that item into the record?
Item number 6 is a report from the Board of Harbor Commissioners relative to renewing the commercial paper program.
Good afternoon, Marla Blevins, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Financial Officer for the Harbor Department. The Port is seeking to renew its commercial paper program in the amount of $200 million. Commercial paper is a short-term debt instrument that allows the department to borrow money more quickly until longer-term financing such as bonds become available. If I were to draw a parallel to consumer finance, it would be like using a credit card as opposed to taking out a long-term mortgage on your house. The department uses commercial paper to fund capital projects on an interim basis until long-term debt is available. Commercial paper also saves the department money because the interest rates are lower because the debt instrument is outstanding for a shorter period of time. We've used commercial paper since 2001. Other city departments, including the airport, DWP, as well as the CAO's office, make use of commercial paper as well. The following documents are before you and are necessary in order to renew the program. The dealer agreements with Ramirez & Company and U.S. Bank. They'll serve as the dealers for the program. In the event that we issue commercial paper, they're the ones that sell it to investors. Paying agent agreement with U.S. Bank. They serve as in an administrative capacity and make the payments to the investors. A line of credit with Mizuho Bank, which provides an additional layer of security for the investors for the bonds. And lastly, an offering memorandum to market the commercial papers to investors. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Pretty straightforward. Any questions from colleagues? It's the rates you get on the commercial paper, I assume?
They're very low right now, about 0.15% or 15 basis points.
That's great. Can't ask for better than that. So, great. Thank you very much. No questions on that. We have public comment cards on this item.
Thank you.
From Mr. Noel Weiss.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Not easy, I guess, to sit on that side of the table sometimes, but it's also not easy to try to get the government to act proactively in prevention. My concern is with this item is that you not approve it today because there are certain, and I've set this out in correspondence to you, which will also, I guess, be made part of the record. Risk disclosure relative to the Rancho facility. That facility, for those members of the committee who aren't familiar, we're talking about 25 million gallons of butane stored in two 12.5 million gallon tanks. This facility is located within a half a mile of the port. If there's an accident at that facility, the ability of the port to meet its obligations will be significantly impaired. This is the kind of a risk that is objective, it's reasonable, and it needs to be discussed in the disclosure requirements. The failure to do so, I think, could expose the city to liability under the securities laws, apart from all of the other economic exposure that the city has. The port has a risk management policy that this committee has never, and the City Council has never undertaken. This is a serious issue, and frankly, my request is that even if it's just continued a week where you can evaluate in some greater detail and we can get some greater discussion on this, I think it would merit that action. I appreciate, and again, my letter, please refer to it. I'm going to give an extra copy. Thank you, Council.
Okay, Mr. NWA, or this one is listed as Herman, AKW, NWA. Go ahead.
I most definitely agree with Mr. Knoll's decision. I too oppose. Oppose for your abuse and your discretion of following rules and applying applicable law to the safety and the hazards that you may create in these conditions that the community is unaware of to renew commercial paper programs in areas that will impact the community. You still don't get it, right? Haven't you heard? You can't trust a politician, especially the ones in Los Angeles, who cannot stick to guidelines, standards of protection rights when it comes to our expression and our opposed opposition to the measures that you place before us, and therefore.
Thank you. Well, I'm interested in the liability questions and we're interested in looking into that. I don't see it in terms of the commercial paper extension, so I'm going to, without objection, unless an objection, move forward on this item, which is dealing with commercial paper, and recommend approval of this item. But happy to hear more in the future about the liability questions as a separate topic. So we'll move to item number 7. Mr. Espinosa.
Item number 7 is a report from the Board of Harbor Commissioners relative to the Second Amendment to the agreement with PurePass LLC to provide trucking gate move data for the Clean Truck Program.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Wonder. I'm an environmental manager in the Port's Environmental Management Division. And the item before you is a Second Amendment with PurePass to provide Clean Truck Program data to the Port of Los Angeles. PurePass is a nonprofit organization that was created by our marine terminal operators to collect and compile data. The data is then, for the Clean Truck Program, is provided to us, and it's used for helping to create our emissions inventory, to track the Clean Truck Program, to show that the Clean Truck Program has resulted in the 90+% air emission reductions in and around the Port of Los Angeles, and also to provide mayor's metrics. This is the Second Amendment to the agreement, and it should be noted that the Clean Truck Program is completely self-funded with registration and concession fees from the trucking companies, including this additional $144,000 over 3 years.
So what is the data that PurePass is actually analyzing?
It is truck moves, truck engine data, and other information that we need in order to compile our inventories and to make sure that the trucks are complying with all the Clean Truck Program guidelines.
Any additional questions, members?
Just maybe more of a comment. I mean, the Clean Truck Program is one of the most successful environmental programs the City of Los Angeles has ever done. I mean, it has had a dramatic, noticeable impact on air quality, and I don't think it gets celebrated enough. Could you just sort of tell us a little bit about what the impact has been?
You're definitely correct. In 2006, the Port of Los Angeles, in conjunction with the Port of Long Beach, promulgated the Clean Air Action Plan, and really that contained many measures to reduce air pollution at the ports. And the one that has been the most successful, as you said, is the Clean Truck Program. That was a progressive ban that was completed on January 1, 2012, and that requires that all trucks coming to the Port of Los Angeles have model 2007 or newer engines. Before the Clean Truck Program, the dirtiest trucks, in theory, came to die at the Port of Los Angeles. When a truck can't go far, can't go across the country, it goes into business at the Port of Los Angeles. So as of our most recent emissions inventories, the effect of this program has been the emissions from trucks are down over 90%. It is significant and one of the most, if not the most successful environmental program I've ever heard of, really.
I think 90% drastically superseded the expectations of even the folks who put the program together, which is saying something given that court decisions have hamstrung the program, so it's not even as good as the architects had wanted it to be. So.
And one interesting thing we see after getting data like this from PeerPass is that the trucking companies on their own, every month we see more and more trucks that not only have 2007 engines, but have 2010 model year engines, which is even a further pollution reduction, and that's going up every month noticeably.
Yeah. Great. No additional questions. Thank you very much. We have 2 public comment cards. We'll start with Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you very much, sir. I pass.
NWA.
Right.
Go ahead.
Mr. Herman?
I wait.
Okay. Then we'll move on to item number 8.
Item number 7, would you like to move to approve that item?
So, yeah, so we have to
Okay,
vote
it's
on
been
it.
moved and seconded. There's no objection. That will be the action of the committee. Item number 8, please.
Item number 8 is a report from the Board of Police Commissioners relative to the Memorandum of Agreement between the Harbor Department and the Police Department for aerial patrols and specialized missions services.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Tom Gazy, Acting Chief of Police, Los Angeles Port Police, joined by my colleague, Sergeant George Gonzalez from the Los Angeles Air Support Division.
Good afternoon.
This is with respect to an annual air support agreement with the Port of Los Angeles and Port of Los Angeles Police for fiscal year 15 and 16. It's an MOA not to exceed $135,000 for 1 year. This is an agreement that we've had in place for approximately the last 8 years. The agreement provides air support services from the Los Angeles Police Department for the Port of Los Angeles and Port of Los Angeles Police with respect to general law enforcement, general patrols, special operations, transport of personnel under emergency circumstances, as well as investigation at sea with regard to ships, inbound, outbound cargo, and so forth, including environmental impacts and security measures, anti-terrorism activities, as well as radiological detection at sea and in and about the Port of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Additional comments?
The funding is critical to supplement routine patrols. The routine operations of the Los Angeles Police Department do include the port. It's those times when there are special circumstances that may arise that would draw our limited assets from the routines of airborne law enforcement where these funds would play a major role.
Has there ever been a time when the port needed the support, but because of other things going on in the city, they weren't able to provide it?
Well, this fund accounts for that, sir. What we do with this money is we ensure that the aircraft and the crews assigned for the particular mission which we are scheduling in advance will not impact normal operations. So the answer is no.
So that's what I was going to answer. So that situation, that concern will not take place.
Correct. It's addressed.
Great.
I have a
Ms.
question.
Martinez, go ahead.
How do you handle, for example, if I had a sole area unit call in the valley and the port had the same unit on call with a less urgent matter? How do you handle that situation?
The routine operational patrols of the Los Angeles Police Department are not affected. These missions are scheduled in advance. Now, if it's an unscheduled event, the aircraft that are flying patrol missions throughout the city will prioritize in the immediate defense of life critical incidents that are happening right now as compared to investigative or perimeters or searches. Those types of emergencies would not be impacted by this. We will respond and support the Port of Los Angeles under emergency conditions. These are pre-planned extra duties not to draw from routine patrol personnel and aircraft.
Got it. Thank you for explaining that. That was one of my concerns.
Additional questions, Mr. Krikorian?
I assume that the reimbursement under this MOU is full cost recovery, including all direct and indirect costs of the deployment.
Yes, that is my understanding.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Great. No additional comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have 2 public comment cards. Ms. Ramirez, followed by NWA.
Yes, please. The funding is needed in the ports. The pilots have great peripheral vision, great manual dexterity, highly coordinated, and sharp synapses and neurons to be as sharp and alert as our LAPD, sheriffs, chopper pilots, and our port choppers. Again, God bless them, and also because you've got parts of at the harbor, you have problems with contraband coming into the country. They have to be on high alert. And so streamlining both the LAPD with the harbor port personnel is extremely critical, especially when we have or may have domestic terrorism problems. And again, fantastic. We have the greatest pilots, and I would hope that the city of Los Angeles would one day recommend some kind of a lavish party or award these wonderful pilots who bust their butts night and day. And again, they can get embolism by sitting on their butts 8 hours. It is very difficult. It's called thrombosis. So God bless America and Donald Trump and the United States military. Thank you.
Mr. NWA?
Well, it's obvious that we can see that there's a billing issue here between the Harbor Department and the Police Department. And strictly as brought out by Ms. Nuri is that the priority should just stay where it belongs, in the harbor. You can't take resources that are paid $135,000 for their assignment to venture off to go help somebody who's being entangled with some problem in the valley. So whether or not this is double dipping into overtime or services provided, it's true. What is the reimbursement if they're not out there doing their duty, Mr. Krikorian? What are they doing? It's something to question. So provide these pilots in the harbor what they need, and that is the resources and monies allocated for their position in the harbor only.
Might as well stay there because we have public comment next and you'll be first on the list. So without objection, seeing no objection, this item is approved. Now we have 3 cards for public comment. I guess we will start then with Mr. Weiss. Mr. NWA sat down.
Mr. Chairman, my request is really a twofold. One, that you exercise your power in terms of setting an agenda to agendize the port master plan and the port risk management plan that was approved in August of 2013. Now, if it in fact has already been approved, I will stand corrected, but as of 6, 8, 10 months ago, I don't think it has. And I think it's important that this council exercise the authority that it possesses over the port to evaluate what the risk management plan is and what the master plan is. And again, that will raise the Plains Rancho issue. And let me add, too, that Plains All-America Pipeline is the same company that runs Rancho that operated that Santa Barbara oil spill and others. So that's my request, number one. Number two, kind of following up on item 8 here, I think in terms of trying to look at the liability, look at the safety issues, there's no reason. The port right now engages the LAFD under a master agreement to provide fire services. I think an extra $500,000, which, by the way, is less than the $600,000 that they're paying for their commercial note facility, to basically pay a couple of firemen to basically inspect this facility on a monthly basis. That would go at least some of the way toward mitigating some of the public exposure and risk that both the port and the public faces in connection with the operation of that facility. So those are my 2 requests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Ramirez.
Again, pilot safety is a priority. We demand that the city take care of our beloved pilots and their families. Give them 2 weeks paid vacations anywhere in the world and let them stay in the finest hotels with the finest cuisines and the best butt rubs that they've ever had. Make them whole and complete so they will be happy and they will protect us Los Angelinos with such fervor and such tenacity that they would just jump out of their skin. And I say, God bless our pilots, because it is not easy to fly, you know. It is not easy to fly at all. And if any of you have flown out of Van Nuys like I have, it is difficult. So therefore, God bless our pilots, our military, and all the crew and personnel. And let's work on the ATC because they really do need help. And having said that, one more thing. Again, I want to say thank you to Mr. Estrada. You were very polite and very charming, and I thank you for that. It's very rare quality in a Latino. And for that, I want to thank you. God bless you, and God bless Donald Trump in America. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you. NWA?
Talking about niggers with attitude? Is that what you're talking about, Ms. Bloomfield? Niggers with attitude? Because this nigger has an attitude, and that attitude is, it's sad to see that a quorum dissolves prior to the end of this committee meeting. Shows you the disrespect and the little dignity of your mentality. As Adolf Hitler would say, Heil Hitler! Because that's how you run this committee. 1 minute of public comment. I wanted to hear the fine gentleman who's the first speaker finish what he had to say, because you cannot provide information that is critical to the understanding of the comprehensive intelligence of any intellectual. 1 fucking minute? You sound like Herb Wesley and that little prick who kicked me out of general public comment this morning on item 23, talking about the top notorious gangs. You run the city of Los Angeles like a mafia organized gang. Eat it.
Thank you. That concludes the first meeting of the ITCT committee. And our next committee meeting, I believe, is on the 18th and may actually be down in the chambers. We're going to figure that out depending on, we're expecting a large crowd potentially for that issue, the airport, Uber, and taxis, but we will just putting people on notice that that may be down there. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.